If you were served with a temporary restraining order, you may be thinking, I should file one back. If anybody deserves to have a restraining order against them, it's the person who filed this against me, usually your ex, if it's a domestic violence restraining order. So in this video, I'm going to be going through 5 important considerations that you should think about before you file a counter restraining order against your ex. My name is Veronica. I'm a domestic violence restraining order defense attorney here in California, and I help people put their cases behind them so that they can enjoy their lives and their freedom. I'm also the creator of a course in which I teach you from start to finish everything that you need to know to prepare for your restraining order hearing and to win your restraining order hearing. If that is something that you're interested in, you can find a link to your first free class in the description box down below. Okay, so let's jump right in. 5 important considerations if you are thinking about filing a counter restraining order once you were already served with one. Number 1 is that, let's say that the two of you had lived together or you have children together. When you got the temporary restraining order, it probably says you have to no longer live in the house and you can't see your kids. Now, if you file a restraining order against the other party, even if it is granted, you are not going to get custody back as part of that, and you are not going to be able to go back in the home as part of that. Whoever files one first will get those temporary orders that pertain to custody or the home. So that is one thing to think about, to know that that's not going to be a benefit to filing a restraining order against them now. Number 2, if you file a counter restraining order and you don't have any solid evidence, of course you always have your word and that is evidence on either side, but you don't really have any solid evidence and you're saying, they accused me of this, well, this is what they did. Sometimes it can come across, in fact, a lot of times, it can come across as retaliatory and abusive, especially, I'm sorry to say, but I'm just here to be completely honest with you. If you are a man and you got served with a restraining order and you file one back, sometimes that is going to look, to a lot of judges, they think that's what an abuser would do. They would strike back, and that's what you're doing, striking back. And unfortunately, those gender biases are alive and well, as you probably know now, if you didn't before, if you're dealing with this restraining order process. Number 3, it's extremely easy to file a temporary restraining order. Especially if there was some sort of incident where the police were called, the cops oftentimes will tell people exactly how to do it. And it's super easy. You just go down to the courthouse. And I actually, when I was a brand new attorney, I actually volunteered at the domestic violence clinic there to get some experience. And what would happen is that people come in and they say they want a restraining order, and you sort of walk them through, here's how you get one, here's what you would have to show, you type up everything for them, you file all the documents for them, and this is at most courthouses in Los Angeles, and many counties have something like this throughout California. And you tell them exactly what's going to happen. You make it super easy. A judge has a big stack of these and they just sign off on them without really reading them that carefully. The clinic helps the person who got the restraining order get the other party served via the sheriff. And that's it. That part is super easy and fast. And you can do it based on an impulse. But a lot of people, as time goes on, they'll start to lose steam, especially if there really wasn't anything that happened. You weren't actually abusive. A lot of people, after a while they think, do I really want to do this? Do I really want to go to court? Do I want to do all of this? And sometimes they'll decide, you know what? It's not worth it. I'm just going to drop it. I'm not going to show up at the hearing. And if they don't show up at the hearing as a petitioner, as the person who is asking for the restraining order, then it's going to be dropped. But if you now file a restraining order against them, now they get served with the papers like how you got served with. And I'm sure you remember that feeling that you had when you were served these papers. I mean, this is something that was filed with the court. It's official. There's a court order on it. And it's either airing your dirty laundry or talking about things that are not true, exaggerating. So if they were thinking, well, maybe I'm going to drop it. Do I really want to go through with this thing? The relationship was maybe not a good one, but it's over. Or you have kids together and they think, do I really want the mother or the father of my child to have a restraining order against them? It goes on their record. It can affect their employment. It can affect the child support, therefore, that I get. Maybe I don't want that to happen, so I'm just going to let it go. But then they get served with the restraining order that you filed. And now those feelings, that esteem that they were starting to lose, they have, again, 100%. And now they can't just simply not show up. Now they have to show up to defend themselves. So this can incentivize someone who was going to drop it to all of a sudden decide not to drop it. Now, number 4 is that if you file a restraining order against the other person, you are going to get a hearing date that generally is going to be later than their restraining order hearing date. And already throughout California, the courts are super crowded with these restraining orders. To me, it seems like the court system does not care a whole lot about them because they don't make money. If you file a civil lawsuit, for example, you have to pay a $435 filing fee. Family law, you have to do the same. Restraining orders, you don't have to usually pay anything. And so it's just my theory, but I don't think that the court system really cares too much about them and sees them as more of a nuisance. So they just pack these courtrooms with so many of these hearings. And if you file a restraining order against the other person, you get a later hearing date. The first hearing date is definitely going to be continued. So the hearing date on their restraining order, let's say it was set for the 20th of the month. Now you file one against them, you get a hearing date of the 25th. The first one, the one for the 20th, is going to be continued to the 25th so that the two of them can be heard together. Now on the 25th, there's also a very good chance that it's going to be pushed out. So part of the problem here with these restraining orders is that if you're the one who gets served first with a restraining order, and there are temporary orders that really affect you, like you can't live in your home, but you still have to pay rent, or you still have to pay your mortgage, or you can't see your kids, or you can't see your dog. I mean, these are all really important issues to you. And the longer that it gets extended, the longer that these issues affect you. So just know that if you file a counter restraining order, the first date is going to get pushed back. They're going to be heard on the same day. And another thing to keep in mind is that the court now sees that your hearing is probably going to take longer, because it's not just about if one party abused the other, it's about did either party abuse the other. It's going to take longer, and because of that, they are going to be probably more inclined to push it out to another day versus a hearing that they think is going to be really fast. They can just hammer out, get it done, and get it off their calendar. Of course, it depends on the courtroom. It depends on how busy they are. It depends on the judge. But that is a possibility to keep in mind. I've had clients who are just, especially if they can't see their children, are just so desperate to have the restraining order heard. And when the judge says, I'm going to move your restraining order, we're going to hear the older ones first, they're just devastated. And there's not a whole lot that we can do about that. So it is something I always make sure that they know going in. If you want to file one against the other party, it increases the chances that this temporary restraining order is going to be extended. Because to be clear, whatever orders are in the temporary restraining order are going to stay in place until there's actually a hearing. Number 5. The judge may decide, if both of you have filed restraining orders against one another, to say, I'm just going to grant both of them. You guys don't want to talk to each other? Fine. I'm going to grant restraining orders against both of you. And so now neither one of you can contact the other. That's what you two want anyway. And the problem there is, first of all, it's going to go on your record. So it can affect your employment, it can affect your housing. And also, if you are the one who was served first, many times what the judge will do is whatever orders were in the temporary restraining order. So remember, this includes orders about housing, orders about child custody, orders about animals, personal property. All of those will probably be granted in the same way that they were for the temporary restraining order, which can be a huge problem. That's the opposite of what you want if you were the respondent and you were served initially. So it can actually increase the chances that you lose this restraining order hearing. And I know that you can be very frustrated in this situation. I mean, I think that's an understatement. You can be really, really frustrated and you want to get back at the other person. But remember, what you probably want more than that is to make sure that you don't have a restraining order on your record, that if you have kids, you're able to see your kids, and that you don't end up sleeping in your car or paying for a really expensive Airbnb or living with a friend, while you're paying your rent or mortgage at a place that you are not living and this other person is living. And by the way, you're not going to get that money back most likely ever if there was a restraining order in place. So you may have to eventually evict them, get them out. You're probably never going to get any money for the time that they were living there and you couldn't because of the restraining order. So it's really important that you do everything you can to maximize your defense of the restraining order rather than having this sort of knee-jerk reaction of, well, they filed one against me, I'm going to file one against them too. I hope you found this video helpful. And again, if you are considering representing yourself at your restraining order hearing, you can binge watch YouTube hoping to find the answers, or you can get them delivered to you on a silver platter, which is exactly what I do in my course. And you can get your free first class. It gives you an idea of what is going to be in the course, sort of the format of the course. You can get that in the link down below. It's information that is not on YouTube, not on my channel, but not anywhere that I've ever seen. So go check it out. You have literally nothing to lose. And if you did find this video helpful, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell.